So first thing first, safety first. I got my fire extinguisher, fuel valve shut off, and first I'm going to drain the carbs again because I just try to fire it up and there must be fuel going to those carbs. So let's start it. Oh, definitely gloves. Okay, these are the fuel drain tube from the carb. Alright, smell it. Here we go, comes again. Now I've disconnected the fuel line after the valve into the pump. So now I've fitted another tube to this opening of the valve, and I've reused that clamp to clamp this clear tube to the valve, so it doesn't get loose and spill petrol everywhere. So now I'm just going to open this valve and you'll see petrol come out easily. It's flowing nicely. See into the fuel can. So I'm going to let it run for a while to drain all the fuel. I like to have a bungee cord connected to the tank and hook it up to somewhere else in front of the bike, just to hold it in place in case I knock it and bend backwards. So next, the battery is coming out. I'm going to disconnect all the connectors, and then the airbox. To remove the airbox, there's a little bit of work before required to remove it. That is the ignition, because as you can see, the airbox is tucked right underneath that, and if you don't remove the ignition, the airbox is going to get stuck under there, and it will be very difficult for you to remove. To remove the ignition is quite easy, just 2 bolts, and then you can just tuck it somewhere, and this area will be clear for you to remove the airbox. Another thing to remove the airbox, you see this, there is a kind of a steel ring that clamp it to the carburetor. So that's the air intake. So you have to release those 2 clamps. There's one on the other side, and also this airbox and the battery tray is all connected together, and there are various other hoses that you have to disconnect, including the ignition plug, before you can lift the whole thing off. So Now let's get into it. So I'll show you what the airbox looks like. So this is actually a single piece unit. There's the intake airbox, and the battery tray is actually connected to it. There are a few hoses, such as this one and the one in the front. A couple of cables on the other side, as well as the two ignition plugs. They have to be removed before you can lift the things off, and there's one bolt at the bottom of it that have to be removed to lift it up. It's actually quite easy to remove once you know what you have to disconnect and get out of the way. So now let's just go on to check the carbs. Okay, just before I remove the carburetors, I want to show you a few things that you have to disconnect or loosen before you can take it out. So first thing will be this one. That's the choke. So it has a cable connected to it. This one is actually quite easy to remove. You just first remove the cable, and then that's it. You don't worry about it. The next thing will be your fuel line. Is here. So this one has a clamp, so you have to loosen that. Now watch out, there might be some fuel coming out of it, so you might have some a small container or something like that to collect the fuel. And then you have to plug it, so no more fuel is going to leak out, or you have some unexpected things going in there, like insects or dirt or something. And then we come to the bottom of the bike. And the next thing you have to take out, to remove from the carb, is the throttle cables, because the throttle body is connected to the carb. So you have to remove the cables from the throttle body before you can remove the carb. And then you will see this clamp here, one on each side of the carb, one on each side for each carburetor. You have to loosen this because the carburetor is actually clamped onto the intake pipe of the engine. And after that, basically you can just lift off the carburetor. This is actually the alternator relay. This is actually bolted to the bottom of the battery tray. So before you remove the battery tray connected with the airbox, you have to disconnect this. And before And when you finish everything and put this back, you have to be extra careful because as for most motorcycles, it's a very compact package. There is very little room between this and the engine block because this Ducati, which is the first generation Monster, is an air-cooled V-twin engine. So these are actually the cooling fins. It's very easy if you're not careful that this, especially the wires, will touch the cooling fin, and once the engine is hot, it will burn through the wires and expose the internal metal wire, and that's just a recipe for a short circuit. I know this because it happened to me before. I wasn't careful the first time I removed this, and it's actually the wire touched the fin, the cooling fin, and burned through, and the bike shot itself and burns the battery and the fuel bulbs. Luckily there was no fire or anything, but it was a scary experience because I suddenly has no power or nothing whatsoever of the bike in the middle of the road. Okay, now you can see the carburetors are out. Once the carburetors are out of the engine, the next thing we want to do is cover these two holes. So I already covered this one up. So these are your intake pipes. You don't want anything to drop in there. So I'll just immediately after taking the carburetors out, I will just cover it up with a pair of gloves, or you have any other things, maybe a cling wrap or anything you can use just to cover up straight away, because if you drop anything in there, it will be a disaster for your engine. Okay, next I'm going to clean the carburetors. For this part, first I would like to get a few clean picnic plates or single-use plastic plates, just to put your parts in there so you won't lose them. And also when you clean the carburetors with the carb cleaner, it's going to get drippy and there'll be liquid coming out, so you want to collect all those stuff, start going everywhere. So to clean it, first you have to remove this cap, and then there's the diaphragm in there. I've shown you before that it's all clunked up, and once you open that part, you'll see a few channels or holes which you have to clean as well. And then flip it over to the other side. These are the fuel bowl, so you have to take in a few screws off to take this cap or cover off. When you do that, just have to be extra careful that there is a gasket around it, and it's quite delicate. You don't want to damage it, otherwise you have to replace it. And also the parts in there are very fragile, they're tiny, and kind of quite precise parts. You don't want to damage that as well. Other than that, I'd also do it one by one. I like to do it one by one. I won't take things apart at once. Then you might mix them up, or have some other problems later putting it back. Okay, let's start it. For those who want to know, so this is the diaphragm, which is, it goes in and out like that to adjust the fuel and the air mixture, the fuel and air mixture. And on this side, you can see there are quite a few holes in this. So this, for start, is one here, and there's actually a rubber ring on it. You don't want to lose that. And there's one here, there's one here, and there's one in there. I'm not sure if you can see it. That's actually connected to these two, just the breather. Okay, so I've cleaned the intake area and the diaphragm area. Now this is the fuel bowl, the carburetor. As you can see, it's pretty clean, as you expect. There shouldn't be much dirt in there. The only important thing here are those 3 jets. Those are the ones to deliver the fuel to the engine. So to clean that, you just need some fine copper wire. So I've stripped the outer insulation of this one, and you can see there are fine copper wires. You want to use copper wires, not steel wires, because copper is kind of a soft type of metal, and those jets are made of copper. So you won't scratch or damage those delicate parts with copper wire. But if you use steel wire or even a needle, you can easily damage those parts. So you just get a fine thread of wire, poke it down the hole a few times, just to clear the blockage if there's any, and then give it a blast of carb cleaner. So that should be fine. And then after that, you just assemble everything back and put it back on the bike. Here is the fuel bowl cover. As you can see, there is a gasket inside that. This one still looks fine, so I'm not going to replace this time. I'm just going to reuse it. Just be careful with any of these parts. They're quite delicate. You don't want to break it.